I think it's SVP and General Counsel for Compliance and Integrity, yeah. And then I'll talk about that's a new role. That's okay.
Yeah.
I can say,
I can say I know you.
Yeah. Vouch for my integrity.
The camera. The camera. Don't pass it to the camera.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming. Hi. Hi. Many of you all know me, but some of those where we're streaming and recording may not. I'm Tracy Staines, and I'm the HR leader for, our watch operations, technology, and engineering teams and infrastructure. And I'm based here at the GTEC. But today we're really lucky to have Alisa Pincus with us. Alisa and I actually know each other really well because she's actually based in our Sydney office, where I was. But she's actually from New York, and she'll tell you a little bit more about herself. So Alisa is our SVP and General Counsel for Compliance and Integrity. And we're really, really happy to have her here today to talk about compliance and integrity and how that works. So I'm going to hand you over to Alisa.
Thanks, Tracy. I don't need that.
I will keep this for questions.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone, for coming, and people who've joined on the live stream, which was a late edition. So sorry we tricked everyone into coming to the auditorium. Wasn't intended to be a trick, but I think it worked that way. So sorry. And if you do have questions, you can put them in the Nielsen, Florida G+ community, and Eva's going to monitor those as we go. So as Tracy mentioned, I'm here from Sydney. I arrived yesterday, so if I lose my train of thought or fall asleep here, it's because of jet lag. My role as General Counsel for Compliance and Integrity was created a couple years ago, and we'll talk a little bit about why the role was created and why we're so focused on compliance and integrity that we've dragged everybody away from their desks today. So why are we so focused? Well, I think, first of all, our success as a business really depends on trust and independence, and integrity is what underpins that trust. And without that foundation, we don't have much of a business model. It's something that more broadly governments and regulators are expecting. Our stakeholders, our shareholders, our clients, they all expect us to have a process and procedure and really rigor around doing things the right way. Globally, it's a matter that's affecting a lot of companies, and we'll talk a little bit about how some companies have been affected by sort of falling below the standard on that. But it's certainly, there's an expectation that companies have cultures of compliance and procedures around compliance. As a company that's hugely committed to social responsibility, and I think has, a real, has that really at our core, and a lot of what we're doing, doing the right thing certainly ties into that, doing the right by the communities where we live and work. And it's good risk management. Getting mired in compliance problems costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of corporate time. So the more we can set things up to facilitate everyone doing things the right way and avoiding those problems, the better off we are. I think also culturally, and we'll talk a lot about culture today, I hope, it fits with our values, but most importantly, it makes it a good place to work. I think everybody wants to work at a place where people do the right thing and where that's not just lip service, but it's actually something that's really valued and a priority. So here are some examples where maybe it's not been done the right way. Sorry, I've got a mic on my ankle there. So one of my goals in my role is to really sort of spread the word that compliance isn't just an issue for legal to worry about. So I might be in the legal team and a lawyer, but it's really a business issue for all of us. And the more everybody takes ownership over it and understands how to do the right thing, the better off we all are as a business. And culture, I think, is a real important part of that equation. And these are a few companies. These are, literally pulled from the headlines, where I'm sure all of these companies had a code of conduct. I'm sure they had corporate values, but what they didn't have was a culture that actually embraced those values and embraced what it said in those codes. And that led to really big bottom line problems. So loss of market cap, jail for some people. Wells Fargo has recently been told by the Federal Reserve Board that it is not allowed to grow as a bank. Like, it actually can't grow its revenue until it fixes its compliance problem, which is pretty staggering order from the Federal Reserve Bank. Uber, we all know about Weinstein Company, just culture matters, and it impacts the bottom line. And so the more that we all embrace doing things the right way, I think it'll help our bottom line and our success as a business. So the goals for our program are really to build that culture, foster an environment where everyone feels comfortable speaking up, create a process and a framework to detect and remedy compliance issues when they do happen, and then inform people, educate people, train people to know what the right thing to do is, what Nielsen's expectations are, and reduce and deter misconduct. And one way we've done that recently, we launched last year our new code of conduct, which I think makes Nielsen's expectations clearer. It sets them out in a way that's a lot more user-friendly. Certainly, if you remember the old code of conduct, it was pretty hard to understand in some sections. Very lawyerly. We've tried to make it less so, and really make it something that associates can relate to. So you know what the company's expectations are of everybody, from the most senior to the most junior employee, and you know what to do, and you know how to ask questions if you're not sure. We also have a code of conduct training that I think most people here have taken, but if you haven't, please log on and take it. And when you get to that last screen, click receive course credit, because that seems to be a technical problem that some of you may have had. So thanks for those who have taken it, and apologies to those who've had to take it twice because of the technical problem. So our team that we're building 2 or 3 times, sorry. You could run the training. Anyway. So our team that we've created is a small dedicated team, and then we rely on a lot of other people. So our dedicated team is me in my role, and Brittany Hewitt is actually here in the back of the room, who's our compliance and integrity program manager, who's helping manage the data and really figure out, we're a data company, what are we learning about integrity at Nielsen? What are the claims we're getting? What are the issues that we're having? And what can we do about them? We're doing that both in terms of claims. We've also run culture surveys. You may have taken that a couple years ago. We'll talk a bit about the data from that survey in a second, and we're going to run it again this year. We then have 9 compliance and integrity leaders around the world. Bobby Bialis, who's our new North America leader, was supposed to be here with me today, but she couldn't make it down to Tampa, so apologies. And these are it's a multifunctional team. Every one of them has a day job doing something else, be it in legal, finance, HR, or operations. And on top of that, they help oversee investigations of complaints that come in their markets. And then we have an Integrity Ambassador program, which is a growing program to really raise the profile of compliance and integrity around the world. We identified in many offices around the world an individual or individuals who can be role models, lead by example, and help just build that culture that we've been talking about. They take some of the initiatives that we're working on at the central corporate level and really bring them out and localize them and make them most relevant. Certainly for our international offices, that localization is really important. When we have the American corporate team, even if I sit in Australia, coming up with the idea and then saying, okay, put this training in place everywhere, really finding a way to make it relevant. And they're doing really creative things. It's really, it's been an excellent program. We have it in about 26 countries. We have 37 ambassadors. We have 4 ambassadors currently for the US, Adam Solars, RT Fox, Rose Trees Fox, Brian O'Connell, and Gillian Lusk, who's new from Visual IQ, which we thought was a really great way to bring a new company into the Nielsen fold and how we do things. But we'd love to have an ambassador from Oldsmar. So if there's anyone interested in being an ambassador, if you can come kind of talk to me afterwards and we can talk about that. But this is I think our biggest office in the world. Tracy said it'd be great to have someone based here. And that person is someone who's a resource, who's knowledgeable about the materials, can attend meetings, maybe conduct a little town hall here and there, and help spread the words. Our compliance and our integrity ambassadors don't conduct investigations. They're more about the resources, where to find information, and how to get help finding, who can help you answer how to do the right thing. Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about those cases, which the ambassadors don't work on, but we do. So our reporting rates at Nielsen need some improvement. So many of you who were here in 2016 would have taken this compliance and ethics survey that we ran. About 25,000 people took it worldwide, which was pretty amazing. And what we learned, we asked, did you see misconduct in the last 12 months? And if you saw it, did you report it? And only about 50% of people are reporting misconduct that they're seeing. So that's a real big gap between things that are happening and being witnessed and then what we're finding out about and what we can address. So that's a gap we want to rectify. And that's where culture really comes in. So we asked then, if you didn't report it, why didn't you report it? And about a quarter of the people said, well, a quarter of the reasons. You could answer more than one. So the data, it's quite a sort of slanty chart, so sorry about that. But about a quarter of the people said a reason was I thought I'd be retaliated against. I would suffer negative consequences if I reported. But there were other kind of culturally based reasons for not reporting too. There were, about 10% said I didn't think the company would do anything, or I don't want to get involved. 8% said, well, the person involved was senior, so I didn't want to report it. 7.5% said, I've heard nothing happened. So obviously, it's not 7.5% of the people said, but 7.5% of the reasons given for not reporting. So all those things are a sign that maybe not everybody feels we're really sincere when we say, we want you to speak up, we want to do something about it, and you won't suffer negative consequences. So our no retaliation policy is really important, and it's something that is really meaningful to all of us, and it's important to get those reporting rates up that everybody understands it. So Nielsen prohibits taking or threatening negative job action against someone because that person raised a concern. And retaliation can take lots of different forms, and I'm sure everyone can think of an example. But it's sort of the most extreme examples would be firing someone or reassigning someone or demoting them. But there's also softer areas of retaliation that we'd be concerned about too, sort of excluding someone, making little jokes about, oh, that's the rat, that's the snitch, things like that. Like, that's not what we want to have happen here. And if anyone does hear about that happening or feel that's happening to them, that's misconduct. That's as much misconduct as the underlying misconduct, and we would want to know about it. And this sort of trend of quarter people not reporting because they're concerned about misconduct is not unique to Nielsen. It's actually totally consistent with industry benchmarks, but it's an area we would love to be, we would like to improve upon the benchmarks, not just stay with the benchmark. So how can you report concerns if you find something's wrong? Well, here are 3 ways that you can report directly to the integrity team. So we've got a helpline. You can report anonymously. We prefer if people don't report anonymously. It's a lot easier to work through an issue if we know the parties that are involved. But there will be cases where someone won't feel comfortable, and that's fine. That's allowed, and you can do that anonymously on the telephone. There's a toll-free number. There was a misprint in the number in the code of conduct, which has now been corrected. But if you printed your code of conduct a few months ago, maybe reprint those pages or just go online and get the updated number. And all the Speak Up posters, I think, have been updated around the office with the correct number. There's also a web form, which is in your Nielsen favorites menu. So again, we really do want to hear from people. We made it very easy if someone does have something to report. And that's also, all these things are available in multiple languages. Or you can communicate directly with the compliance and integrity leaders. And all the addresses for reaching people are in the code as well. But in addition, you don't have to there are other ways to report in addition to this. You don't have to go to the integrity team. You can always talk to HR, and you can always talk to your manager. And if you are a manager and people are coming to you with concerns, or since people may come to you with concerns, I want to put in a little plug for another training called Leading with Integrity. That's based actually around a webinar that maybe some of you attended last year that I did for the Managers Network. Back in June, and we built a training around it, which is really about helping managers handle concerns when someone comes to report to them, how to take in the case, what to say, what not to say, what to do, what not to do. You don't have to investigate it, but you do have to talk to someone, and you have to be empathetic. Don't pass judgment on the merits of it, and don't say, no, don't talk to me, slam the door, go talk to your compliance and integrity leader, right? If somebody feels comfortable with you as a manager talking to you, you want to encourage that. But not everybody knows how to handle it so well. So that training is probably, 30, 40 minutes, and hopefully, and probably worth your time. All of these ways of reporting should make their way to us in the compliance and integrity team. And so this is kind of the little schematic for when we do get a claim that comes in. So we get it in all different forms. And then we look at it, the C&I leader who's responsible for that country will review it, analyze it. It does have to pass some sort of threshold. You can't just, a random allegation that someone's done a bad thing, we're not going to go chase that down. It needs to have a bit of meat on it. So that's why identified complaints are a little bit easier. You can follow up if you have questions. Assuming it's a claim that seems to have some merit, which is most of what we get, we then would acknowledge the complaint and to the extent we can contact the person and assign an investigator. So we work with security, we work with HR. We get a lot of HR related claims, and usually we engage an HRBP to help us investigate those claims. And again, it just depends on the allegation type and the market. Finance sometimes is involved, and sometimes we will run an investigation ourselves. We then capture all the data in a case management tool, which Brittany spends a lot of time focusing on. So we can use that to learn, from case to case, what's happening. Are we seeing trends? Are there opportunities for training and awareness and other things like that? The C&I leader will monitor the progress if it's being led by someone else, review the findings, and there'll be a consultation about what action should be taken, if any. Sometimes it's not misconduct, but it might need some coaching. Other times it's just maybe a process change, discipline for somebody, sometimes discipline. And then we, again, capture all that data, and then we report regularly to senior management and the board. We report every quarter to the audit committee of the board about what's going on, because that's an area that they have oversight for, and they want to understand what we're doing to make sure we're avoiding those headlines at the start of the presentation. I think that's all I had. So that's the overview of our program. I think the main goal really is we just want people to feel comfortable. We want people to, first of all, to know what are the company's expectations. In that compliance and ethics survey, one of the other things, there were a lot of have you witnessed misconduct? There were too many I don't knows. So if you don't know if you've witnessed misconduct, sometimes that's logical, but sometimes it means that we haven't done our job telling associates what our expectations are. So we've tried to be clearer with that through the code, through training, through policies, and certainly through, ambassadors and other ways of getting out there. So that's one aspect. And then, okay, so I did, and then I didn't report it, then we want to make people comfortable. So we really want to get those numbers up. Hopefully our 2018 survey will show improvement on all those factors, less misconduct witnessed, more of that reported, and fewer I don't knows. So that's where we'll be getting. Keep your eyes out for that survey at the end of the year. And I think that's really it. And now we can go to questions.
And if you're joining us on the broadcast, this is a reminder to please post your questions in the Nielsen, Florida G+ community. And if you're in the auditorium, please raise your hand first and we can bring you a mic so everyone can hear you.
Guess it's all clear.
Thank you. I'm Leanne, and I want to know a little bit more about the ambassador program. How do you select an ambassador, and how much time out of their day-to-day is required?
We haven't had, ambassadors are usually nominated by the leaders for the country, but here we've done it a bit more by a little more spread out, and we've given people the opportunity to put their hand up. We've done it in a bunch of different ways, but then we sort of meet with the leader for the business where the person works, the HR person kind of chat, is this a person who has a reputation for integrity? Is this someone who would really benefit from getting out in front of the team, and would the team benefit from hearing from this person? It's a pretty fluid process. It's a new-ish program that we're hoping to roll out globally. So in any country where we have it, it's been a bit mixed. And then in terms of time, I think the request, sometimes the calls are at 1 in the morning my time, so I don't always get on those calls. But I think they ask you to do 3 activities a quarter. Is that right, Brittany? I think 3 activities a quarter. And an activity could be putting an item in an office newsletter, speaking at a meeting, doing a small lunch and learn, anything like that, really, and we build materials. And then we have a tracker tool for all the ambassadors worldwide, and we encourage everyone to steal ideas from everybody else, steal with pride. So, if someone, and I've just seen a newsletter that went out in Australia, sort of 3 integrity myths busted. I saw the South Africa version going out yesterday. So there's a lot of leveraging of that. So you don't have to sit there in a vacuum and think up great ideas. There's lots of people thinking up ideas. And the US team is actually great because there's 4 people, 5 people. They get together, I believe, once a month, and they brainstorm ideas, and then they work off each other, and sort of are pretty well split around geographically, except for this corner of the US, which would definitely be great to have someone. Thanks, Leanne.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Montana Thompson.
Hi, Montana.
Hi, nice seeing you in person.
Thanks.
Quick question. How many cases do you think your integrity team actually investigates domestically annually?
That's a really good question. I can do global off the top of my head, but I kind of need to look at Brittany for the US.
Brittany?
We've had about, last year we had about 400 cases globally. We should have more. And that's a process of what's coming, do people know how to report directly to us? And then when people go to HR and go to managers, a lot of things, and this is not a US issue, this is everywhere, are getting resolved locally and we don't know about it. And it's not that we want to micromanage and handle everything, but we want to have that visibility. I think of that 400, it's probably about 100 US. Yes. Yeah, so about a quarter, which I suspect is probably kind of keeping with the population. I'm not sure, but yeah. So another question, yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
I just wanted to know if you guys had any safeguards in place when you say, you expect people to speak up without the fear of retaliation. Is there anything that, that might make them feel a little more comfortable?
That's a great question. I think one thing that we do is we pay attention to the circumstances of the report and to make sure that if there's a retaliation, is it like when we look at it, we would say, is there a risk of retaliation? And we had an example recently where someone complained about something outside of the US and the manager had done something wrong. And so the person was then going to, report to that manager going forward. And we just thought it's actually never going to work. Like there's no way to know if anything happens to that person, is that going to be, so we actually worked on a reassignment. So we would look at it to make sure that there is no risk, or reduce the risk and really encourage someone to talk about it. But that would be something that in a case where the facts presented a risk of retaliation, we would make sure the HRBP was aware and everyone was kind of attuned to make sure that it's. With anonymous reporting, you can't always do that, but sometimes people kind of guess. So it's not a perfect system and it is a risk, but that's why we would want someone to speak up. And we do get complaints from time to time about retaliation, and we investigate those just as we would investigate any report of misconduct.
Hi. I have a question. How long does it usually take to, if somebody has breached the code of conduct, to be removed from the company per se?
Oh, I mean, everything would depend on the facts. First of all, it depends when we would find out about it, and how complicated an investigation is. And, not every violation of the code of conduct leads to someone being exited. Someone might get a warning, someone might get coaching. We would figure it out. Very serious ones would lead to termination, but it really depends on the facts and how long it takes to investigate. We try to investigate as quickly as we can, as you saw from our kind of little core team and the fact that our 9 leaders all have other jobs. Sometimes, we are a little resource constrained, but we try to get through them as quickly as we can.
I know you mentioned that most of the cases did end up being an issue of misconduct, But out of those 400 or so cases that you mentioned, how many were actually not acted upon based on the findings you had?
Do you mean how many were substantiated versus not
Right.
substantiated?
Yep.
I think about half. So about half were substantiated and half weren't.
Okay.
And I'd say that of the number that are not substantiated, a large percentage of those, and this is sort of, but a thing I can comfortably say without getting a data answer from Brittany, a large percentage of those, there's an issue that's like an HR issue that needs to be addressed.
Okay.
It just doesn't rise. It's not a code of conduct, like being a bad manager or having a bad manager, having an argument with someone doesn't violate the code of conduct, right? It's part of being, a person and having a bad day. It could be, or it could be something that's happening all the time and is abusive, and it could be really bad. And so there's a spectrum, and there may be issues where there's an opportunity for coaching or, training or some guidance, and or like a kind of get together meeting and let's talk out the issues. That's not so it's
right.
The issue may be real. It just doesn't rise to the level of a code of conduct.
Okay.
So that's the 50% is not saying 50% there was nothing, it was baseless. It just wasn't found to be a code of conduct violation.
If I may follow up with one more thing. In regards to the cases that you handled, were there a lot of cases where there was maybe perceived hypersensitivity in the issue?
That's a good question. Lots of good questions. Do I have a good answer? No, occasionally, maybe. I mean, I would put those in the HR basket where we would say it really wasn't misconduct, but maybe there's an issue. Sorry to the HR VPs here. I'm giving you your extra work. Yeah, I would say not often, but maybe that sits in that 50%,
okay.
The percentage of the 50% that there's an HR issue to look at. Anyone else? I rushed through my slides, so we've got lots of time. All right, well, also, just while we're talking about having questions, we've actually expanded the functionality of the helpline a little bit, and we're trying to call it the helpline, not the hotline, to make it a little less intimidating sounding, but also it actually has a feature. If you go on it, you can ask a question. So if you have a question about, well, what is the right thing to do? Or my client gave me a gift, or a vendor gave me a gift, what am I supposed to do? And you want to ask it that way, you can do it through there. The operator, if you call, is not going to answer the question. They're going to type up the question, it will get passed through us, and we can answer it that way. So that is an extra way to do it. So today's not your last chance to ask a question in this area. But that is a feature we hope people will take up and use as a way to get clarity on an issue before it becomes a problem and kind of maybe reduce some of the instances. All right. Anything online? I guess not. Nope. Okay. Well, thanks everyone. That was, you got a half hour back.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm here.